Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll call the August 21st meeting together. Would you please take the roll?
Ex officio Marthouse. Director Tozan.
Here.
Director Ramirez.
Here.
Director Nutting. Director LaFontaine.
Present.
Director James.
Present.
Director Blackwood.
Here.
Secretary Sislo present. Treasurer Becker.
Here.
Vice President Gillen.
Here.
President Knobloch.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, next we have approval of minutes from the 7/17/23 meeting. Ms. Sislo?
As you can see by the agenda, the minutes were approved by email vote completed on 7/19/23. I want to thank everybody for such speedy response to my email.
Okay, thank you. Next, do we have a motion to amend or approve the meeting agenda? I will make a motion that we amend it. We need to add an executive session just before adjournment to discuss a personnel legal issue. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Gillen seconds. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. Okay, it passes unanimously, so that will be right before the adjournment. Next, we have the President's report. This Thursday night, the Hancock County Chamber of Commerce is holding their annual awards event in the Hollywood Casino Ballroom. Awards are going to be given out for the Business of the Year and Individuals of the Year in all the municipalities, plus the county. So the club at Diamond Head will receive the award for Business of the Year in Diamond Head. It's really a very nice recognition for all our employees who make the club run on a daily basis. For a few seconds, I want you to think about commercials that you've been seeing on a daily basis on TV for the last month or two or more. If you've ever watched the sitcom Modern Family, one of the main characters is the pitchman for this particular ad. The commercials ask businesses to apply for the Employment Retention Tax Credit, sometimes commonly called ERTC and sometimes even shortened to ERT. It's a government grant for specific types of businesses that kept their employees working during COVID. The POA, we applied for this grant in May of 2022. About 2 weeks ago, we received a deposit for $323,000 for quarters 2 and 3 of the ERTC timeline. So that's $323,000, and it's a grant, so we don't have to pay anything back. We've also been approved for a grant for the other 2 quarters, quarters 1 and 4, which will be $431,000. Okay, so we should receive that in the near future. That'll give us a total of about $764,000 out of these 2 grants, so we don't have to pay those back, and it's a one-time thing. So the one-time money should be spent on one-time expenses as much as possible, and that'll allow us to improve some of our aging infrastructure without going into the dues. During the meeting tonight, there are several expensive motions that, if approved, will be paid for out of this one-time money. So no dues money would be needed. So that's a nice win-win for everybody here. And since Diamond Head is named after a section of Hawaii and all our street names are Hawaiian, we ask that everyone consider donating $10 to the relief fund that's going on in Maui. You can figure out which organization you want just by Googling it, and there's a lot of the not-for-profit organizations that are doing work there. Thank you. Okay, now we have committee reports. We'll start, Mr. James.
Yes, the Golf and Grounds Committee met August the 10th. The greens have been aerated. They are all now healed on both courses. We discussed issues with irrigation heads and controls on the Pine course. We also discussed the need to replace the Cardinal water pump station and complete repair of the Pine water well. We are roughly 20 inches below normal rainfall at this time of the year. Golf activities, they've been quite busy. They held the Women's Gulf Coast Golf Association, the Mini Shaka this past weekend, the Drive, Chip, and Putt Regional this past weekend. They got the Shaka Club Championship coming up, and then early next month, member, and then the Emerald Coast Pro-Am is set September 13th, 15th. The Golf Academy finished their second round with the Veterans Program and preparing for their next round. And they're also doing a modification in the Academy for indoor putting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaFontaine?
The Safety and Environment Committee met on July 26th, and Adam Humphreys provided us with an update on the status of the action items identified during our safety inspection and review. And he also identified the areas that are still on our bucket list, and that is storage for the gasoline containers and paint spray storage over at the golf court maintenance shed. The safety procedure manuals have arrived and are updated. Manuals will be distributed to all departments. This includes the training guides and safety plans. We still need to update our procedures to update MSDS sheets. And that completes. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, August 30th.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blackwood?
Yes, the admin committee met on July 25th. The two largest items we discussed were that the
Can you speak into the microphone, please? Pull it over there a little bit. Thank you.
two items we were finished up with were the employee handbooks have been updated by Human Resource, and they're also working on group insurance quotes for next year. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Tozan?
Yes, the House Committee met August the 3rd. Mr. Adam Humphrey gave us a report on the drains in the kitchen floor, the P-traps. All of the P-traps have restrictions. We had it scoped, and it shows those restrictions. Yeah, as you can imagine, the cost of cutting them up and replacing them would be expensive. Adam was able to find a chemical treatment that would break up the material that's in it. We experienced one success with one drain last Monday. We're continuing that treatment today. Hopefully it'll be throughout all the drains and we'll get them all clear without having to go through a major expense. Adam's also researching the cost of replacing the flooring in latitude 30 with hard tile, ceramic tile. The floors in latitude 30 or in our lounge, in our restaurant areas have failed on an average of about every 3 years. We've gone through indoor-outdoor carpet, we've gone through the vinyl stripping that we have now, and it's failing. The idea of replacing it with hard tile and the ability to replace any bad spots that pop up is the way to go for us on the long term. We reviewed a special events agreement which was implemented, has been implemented. They changed places of deposit on requirement on all the contracts, and the cost of that deposit will go toward the cost of the contract once it's fulfilled. But Chef Rick and Mr. Ram made a presentation on tilt skillet and the need for one in our kitchen. They've asked and made a request that we redesignate $5,500 that we authorized earlier this year for our stove, that we redesignate that $5,500 and add another $5,500 to enable them to buy a used tilt skillet for the kitchen. And we'll be discussing that tonight. Our next meeting is September the 7th.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Sislo?
The Recreation Committee met at the first part of August. We've been still continuing our discussion about East Rec parking, trying to level that, increase the size if at all possible, have appropriate access and egress. And since there's some soccer and baseball increasing, we really want to make a better parking situation there. The pool use was down earlier this month. The heat actually is making the pools harder to use. They're quite warm. Let's see, we're in the midst of planning for fall events like Trunk or Treat and the Fall Festival. The new carpet in the community center has been well received, and we're working on a plan to see if we can't change some of the fencing around the main pool to make it easier for people who reserve a special area for a party. That's all.
Thank you. The Futures Committee did not meet. We're kind of in a hovering position till some of the courts make decisions. Mr. Gillen?
The Airport Marina Committee did meet, and Diane reported that the diesel tank has been emptied, should be by now cleaned, and we're going to put 93 octane fuel in there. We'll have both the 87 and the 93. 93 is evidently a lot of the new jet skis and the new engines are calling for that. We hope to get a little bit more profit out of the fuel. Brad Holliday is the owner of Holiday Air Services and spoke to us. He is the new airport lessee. So he came in, gave us a presentation, his experience in aviation, and what he envisions for the airport. He's made already repairs and painting. He also reported that the new point of sale and the new fuel pump for aviation fuel have been installed and are working. We decided that it would be good for the committee to have the next meeting at the hangar, and he will be able to show us what he's already done and what he envisions. Greg Abady, our general manager, set up a meeting with the Department of Marine Resources to talk with the executive director, Mr. Joe Spraggins, and the executive director, Patrick Levine, were there. Myself, Greg, Ernie, and our engineer that has helped us with the docks and getting rid of all of the mess after the hurricane. Jason Sinichi was also there. We, of course, met with them to thank them for everything that they've done to help us with the grants that we got to do that work. Again, Ernie was talked about some of the money that we've received from other things. That was the Department of Marine Resources supplied $329,305 towards the removal of Piers 1 and 2 after the storm and the replacement of Pier 2. Not want to waste our time while we were there, we asked Mr. Spraggins if could he maybe give us another couple $100,000 while we were there, which of course he couldn't. But he was very, very suggestive that we should do a Tideland grant. It's the quickest and easiest way for us to be able to get money to replace dock number 1. It was estimated that dock is about $250,000 expense, and if we contact our representative and our senator, they can go ahead and help and spirit that through this legislature, and hopefully we may be able to get that money by the end of 2004.
24.
24, yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Mr. Becker?
I defer to the committee chairman I served with.
Mr. Ramirez?
So the Facilities Committee did meet. Excuse me. We discussed all the issues that are all the different projects and things going on. Adam was present in the meeting, and I want to say thanks to him because I know he's busy and he's got a lot going on by what we discussed. But he did take the time out to come and talk to us. We do have some action items that came out of that meeting, and we're working on those. So our next meeting is September the 11th.
Okay, thank you. Now, General Manager's report.
Good evening, everyone. Enclosed in your information packet is the financial report for the month of July, which shows a net income received for all the various departments, $4,575. This amount is approximately $5,000 less than budgeted. but yet still net income. Also, the report provides a year-to-date figure, which is January through July, a net income of $545,912, approximately $279,000 more than budgeted. So year-to-date, we're in good position. The next page is a financial comparison of net income derived with the various years ending. In year 2020, which was a high of the COVID cycle, where people were afraid to be around people, which is ridiculous, but that's what it was. The net for the year, we lost $49,000. Year 2021, things started to improve. In fact, we had People's Bank settlement, which brought in $865,000, and a payroll protection plan reimbursement of $670,000, which shows a $2,126,000 net income for the year 2021. So we're trending in a good direction. Year 2022, net income was $221,479, and year to date, which is 7 months, January through July 2023, we're at $545,912. And what I did was do a hypothetical analysis, which takes us to a year-end number if we trust the budget and trust the outcome of our efforts. It looks like we'll end up $818,005 year-end net income. So I thought that was interesting and also positive. The next page shows the collection report, efforts made to try and obtain balances owed on various accounts from property owners. And the figure for July to this point in time, the month of August, for that period of time, it's $26,850 collected. Year to date, which is 7 months, $310,951. Again, a positive report, and it's amazing how the number of property owners come in and want to either pay the balance owed in full or agree to a payment plan. That's all favorable indications. The next page is the amenity use, and activity has been less than what we hoped for, and it's primarily due to the extensive heat, not only outdoors, but it also affects people's use of the club, food and beverage, sales activity. And for the month of July, the food and beverage department brought in $229,327, which is the slowest month so far this year. So it ranks number 7 out of 7 months. And 63% of the revenue of that 229 occurs Friday through Sunday. And of that total revenue, 64% occurs in sales generated through Latitude 30. Marketing summary. Nancy's had positive meetings with the individual who is the owner of the hotel, Ramada Hotel, and we're trying to work some arrangements where golf packages and tennis packages are becoming inviting and a way to help market both the hotel and Diamond Head. The next page in this report is a payroll overtime summary. which is fairly consistent with previous months. Year 2024 budget timeline for all the operating departments. There's a copy of it in your packet. It's a long 8.5 by 14 sheet. And there's just a minor revision to it, and it deals with a couple dates. But so far, we're right on track. And it specifically shows, I think, 1 or 2 meetings moved either up a day or back a day. But it's slightly revised. I encourage you to get familiar with it. And lastly is the capital expenditure summary, some of which we'll be talking about shortly. Yes, sir.
In your estimate for the year of the $818,000 profit at the end of the year, that doesn't take into consideration the $754,000 we got back from the federal government.
Does not.
So when we realize that income sometime during the year, we should be at $1.5 million.
That would be correct.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. James, do we have any POA members who signed up to comment on agenda items?
We do not.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the regular agenda. Motion 2023-17. It's a motion to approve a request to require bids to replace the Cardinal Water Pump Station. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. James makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who was that? Mr. Ramirez seconds. Okay, Mr. James, you're on.
Yeah, our motion to request bids to replace the Cardinal Water Pump Station. Replacement of the well components, motor, and control station. The replacement of the pump station should last a minimum of 30 years based on the present well or pump in place. Replacing some components alone exceeds 75% of replacement costs without having all components new. So we're requesting that we get bids and approve up to $120,000 for replacement of a new pump station.
Does anyone else have any comments? I have one comment on that. When you do the bids, we want to see the bid specifications and let the treasurer and I just go through them quickly, okay?
Sure.
So we don't have an actual, what's the term for that? Purchasing agent, because we don't have enough large things to do. So we deal with it mostly with small things. Any other questions on that one or comments? Okay, call the question. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, that's unanimous, so that passes. The second motion is to approve securing 3 bids to purchase and install ceramic tile throughout latitude 30 for not to exceed $35,000. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Tozan makes that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Blackwood, second. All right. We'll go with that. Okay, Mr. Tozan, you're up.
Okay, as we mentioned in the reading of the minutes, the floors in the latitude 30 are wearing out. They're just not holding up and need to be replaced. Rather than continuing to replace them with material that would last a short while, the plan is to put a ceramic or porcelain tile down. It'll have a wood grain effect or look of it, so it won't be slippery. And the anticipation is that we can get that done for the flooring. And we look for bids to come in, not less than 3 bids, and don't expect to exceed $35,000 doing that.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I do have a comment. I would want us to make sure we purchase commercial grade tile.
It's in the bid, thank you.
Have y'all picked out a size of the tile?
They're looking at samples at this point. Like I said, it's a long tile, That's probably what, 3.5, 4.5 inches by 11 or 12 inches. And then, like I said, it'll have a grain effect just like wood would, so that it won't be slippery.
Any other questions? Again, I'd like to make sure that when you get the bid specifications written, that you get, let the treasurer and I look through it.
Will do. Got you
quickly.
covered.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so we'll call the question. All in favor of motion 2023-18, raise your right hand, please. Okay, that's unanimous. Now we'll go to 2023-19, a motion to approve a request for bids to repair the Pine Water Pump Station. Someone like to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Okay, Mr. James makes that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. LaFontaine seconds. Okay, Mr. James?
Yes, we would like to request bids and money to replace the downshaft from the motor to the well pump and do wet well cleaning. This should complete refurbishment of the Pine Pump Station to last another 20 or 30 years. The Pine is a well. It is a pump that pumps water from aquifer. The estimated cost to that is not to exceed $40,000.
Okay, you mentioned that that is a well. Can you explain briefly what the one is on the Cardinal course?
The Cardinal is a pump station. It actually uses water from Twin Lakes. The artesian well feeds the lake. The pump station pumps from the lake to the irrigation system. And right now, it's only pumping at half capacity.
Okay, I think it's worthwhile to mention too, for those of you who may not know, we have the ability to pump water from the Pine to the Cardinal, not very well, but it will pump that way. But we do not have the ability to pump from the Cardinal to the Pine. I said that right?
That's correct.
Okay, and the concern that we have is with the weather that's going on right now, I don't know about y'all, but my front yard is crunchy, okay, because I can't put enough water on it. And so if we were to lose the ability to irrigate the 2 golf courses, 2 weeks' time, we would be in a lot of trouble, okay? And it'd cost a fortune to try to undo that.
And just for the record, even though we can pump water from the Pine Station to the Cardinal, we can't irrigate both courses. We can only irrigate one course one day, the next course another day, and that's only the greens of the fairway. It's not both. So we might could save the greens if we lost the Cardinal and had the Pine, which is probably at 80% capacity. We just need to fix the downshaft and the wet cleaning.
Okay, any other comments or questions on that?
Yeah, a couple years ago, when we replaced the vertical motor that operates the well on one of the Pine pumps, we were told by the superintendent that the shaft was wobbling and that sooner or later it would ruin the new motor and it was going to have to be replaced. Well, we've reached a point now where we either have to replace that shaft or we could lose the motor and have to start over again and still have to replace the shaft. So we really don't have any other options here.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we'll vote now on the motion to request for bids to repair the Pine Water Pump Station. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, now 2023-20 is a motion to approve grading the parking lot at East Rec, adding limestone or rocks, and possibly increase the size of the parking area at a cost not to exceed $14,000. Anyone like to make that motion?
I make that motion.
Ms. Sislo makes that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Blackwood seconds again. Ms. Sislo.
we've been working on ways to have the best parking, and we have a lot of problems when everybody's using East Rec with people parking on the street. And we do have some parking space and some area that isn't being used. So by using our own resources, we'll have more off-street, safer parking, some limits to the access and egress so that it isn't something that people just can drive through. We're expecting a lot of increase with baseball, softball, and soccer. Since since COVID, everything has been picking up with activities for the kids. And it has been a goal of the rec committee to make sure that the kids in Diamond Head have good, safe things to do. Pickleball and tennis tournaments are already caused some parking problems, and what we have is not easy to use. We ask that by using our own equipment and moving things around, that we spend no more than $14,000.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing no other questions or comments, we'll call that motion to approve grading the parking lot at East Rec, adding limestone and rocks, possibly increase the size of the parking area at a cost not to exceed $14,000. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. Once again, that's unanimous. Okay, the next one is 2023-21. It's a motion to approve a request for bids to replace, it should be 2 control boxes. Okay, not 3. It should be 2 irrigation control boxes and 80 rotor heads. Somebody like to make that motion?
I will make that motion.
Okay, Mr. James makes a motion. Do we have a second on that one?
I'll second that one.
Mr. Gillen seconds that. Mr. James?
Yes, we request to have receive bids to replace the 2 irrigation control panels and 80 rotor heads. Rotor heads are the big sprinkler heads around the course or the greens that rotate and water the area. This is for the Pine course. The ones on the Cardinal course have been replaced about 3 years ago when the greens were redone. The rotor heads were replaced. Presently, the rotor heads are stripped out, so when the maintenance crew goes to water these, they set the rotor heads, and then when they come back to recheck them, they're stripped out again, so they have to constantly reset them every day. So it's manpower and labor trying to reset these rotor heads that should be set and fixed.
Any other comments or questions on that? Okay, so we have a motion to approve a request for bids to replace 2 irrigation control boxes and 80 rotor heads. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, that is approved. And I'll just remind you on that one also, we would like to see the bid specifications when you get to that. Am I correct? There's only basically 2 companies that make these kind of rotor heads?
Well, the rotor heads only. Toro is the big one, and I think Rainbird's the other one.
Okay, thank you.
One more comment on that, Ernie. So the boxes themselves, actually, these should be automatic, and with the boxes not working, now they're having to go out there and actually manually open the valve and stand there and let the sprinkler system work, and then close the valve back off manually. So that's more.
It's so much more labor intensive to labor we don't have.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Next is motion 2023-22.
We did on 21.
We did vote on that one, right?
We did.
Yes, thank you. Motion 2023-22, a motion to redirect previously approved funds for a stove, it was $5,500, and approve the additional funds to purchase a used tilt skillet not to exceed a total of $11,000. Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Tozan makes that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Gillen seconds. Mr. Tozan?
Yes, early in the year, we approved $5,500 for a stove, a replacement stove. It was going to be a used stove to replace one of our older stoves. The chef is now requesting that we redirect those funds in order to buy a tilt skillet. With the increased activity in the ballroom and the number of large groups, a tilt skillet serves the purpose of being able to cook and manage large amounts of food without having to use multiple pots. It's a key item for him. The reason we have it at $11,000, it's the cost of a new one is $30,000. We're buying a new one, a used one, from one of the restaurant supply houses, and we're limiting that cost at $11,000. Because of that, we won't be getting bids. We'll just be getting the best deal that we can get from a used supplier.
Okay, anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay, so we have a motion to redirect previously approved funds for a stove of $5,500 and improve the additional funds to purchase a used tilt skillet not to exceed $11,000. Everyone in favor, raise your right hand, please. That's unanimous also. Okay, do we have any POA members who wanted to comment on non-agenda items?
We do. Mr. George Bird.
Is
I'm
it
George Bird. I live at 6630 Ahi. I just got a simple request. I don't know, I've been around a golf course and cut through some of the golf trails and stuff like that. I've noticed a couple little issues. If y'all could help us out. I mean, I see a lot of construction debris that's being left out there, not trees and stuff like that, but I'm talking about asphalt, PVC pipes and stuff like that. Seems to be coming from a commercial entity, if you will. Can I approach with
Sure.
some pictures? This is two different areas, so that's why we're in two different packages here. A lot of it is concrete, some picnic tables and stuff like that, but a lot of it is busted up asphalt. I don't know about y'all, but I have some washout issues at my home to where I could use some of that asphalt if it was stored at a location that was accessible for me to come and pick some of it up. I'm just asking for somebody to look at it and see if we can't do just a little bit better job.
okay?
Noticed this today. It's like where you go around, you know the course?
I'm not a golfer, sir, so don't fault me for that. I just ride around on the golf cart.
If you ride on the Cardinal course and you go where Elliott Holmes is building, and you make the turn from hole 11 to hole 12, this just recently showed up in the woods next to the
It's there.
cart.
Yes, sir. I got the same pictures right there.
I'm sure it's
And there's
something
another
that-
one on the other golf course that shows on there. It cuts across. It's like goes through the woods there a little bit, and that's where the picnic tables. A lot of that stuff is the old suitcase,
Yeah.
a water heater. You know, I mean, hey, if I had to, man, I'd come out there and help you pick it up. You know what I'm saying? So
This probably was left there by Elliott, I guess.
Yeah, but,
because
yeah.
it's never been there before,
Yeah.
but.
yeah, and that's right in the way right there. Everybody sees that. This other stuff is a little bit off on the
Yeah,
side.
it's next to the
but, you know,
cart path.
I think trees and limbs is one thing, but something like that, we ought to take better care of ourselves.
I think some of it may have come too when they fixed the bridge on number 14 before you got to 15. Some of that, I believe, is appearing in the cut through between 12 and 9.
Yeah, exactly.
whatever.
That's exactly right. And those picnic tables out there that's all different colors, I just don't think that was a homeowner that did it. But I'd volunteer my time to help somebody. Like I said, I mean, I could use some of that riffraff to stop some washouts at my place. I don't know.
You mean somebody in Diamond Head has a washout? I'm sorry.
No, we all do.
Okay, we will direct the general manager to get somebody to go and visualize these things.
Yes, sir.
And kind of make some sort of an order. Here's these, and we'll see what we can work out with you. Can you give your name and phone number to Mr. Abbott? He's right behind you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, I appreciate it. And Greg, I got the pictures. Okay, anyone else need to speak?
Yes, I want to give a shout out to Dan and his team for the extra work that they've been having to put in because of the heat, the failures of the water.
Which Dan are you talking about?
Dan Hammond, the
Okay.
Green Superintendent. And the extra work they've been having to put in to try to keep the course in good shape. I'd also like to thank Adam because Adam assisted Dan in replacing drainage issues, culverts, and rebuilding cart paths where those washouts were. They worked really hard, did a great job, and I want to let them know that we really appreciate their extra effort.
Anyone else have any comments? Okay, so now we will go into executive session to discuss a legal and personnel issue, and then we'll come back and close the meeting. Thank you for coming. I mean, you're welcome to wait. Greg, here's these pictures. And I wonder if we have a front end loader or something, don't we? That maybe we could move it all to some general location, and that might be useful. No, we're just gonna come back and